Hey everyone, it's Olivia here. So, you will not believe what happened to me today. I decided to be adventurous, step outside my usual snack comfort zone. I saw this new seaweed chip thing at the store. It had this gorgeous packaging, all vibrant green and promising all sorts of deliciousness. I was picturing this crispy, salty, satisfying crunch, and honestly, the anticipation alone was almost the best part. I got home, brewed myself a cup of tea, settled in, and ripped open the bag. And you know what? Disaster. Absolute disaster. It smelled like low tide and tasted, well, let's just say it. Tasted exactly how it smelled. My face literally crumpled up. But even though it was truly awful, I couldn't help but laugh. It was such a letdown, it was almost funny. I'm actually still chuckling about it. So, let's begin our exciting journey of English improvement together. Remember, new videos are released daily focusing on English speaking and listening skills to help you improve and enjoy your learning journey. Okay, so, you have to hear this story. It's about Amras, right? Mango nectar, the king of all mango things. And this particular Amras adventure, it was epic. It wasn't just making Amras, it was a whole experience, See, it all started with a phone call. My Nani, that's my grandmother, calls, all excited. Beta, she says, her voice all bubbly, the Alfonso mangoes have arrived. The real ones, from Ratnagira. Now, you know how it is with Alfonso mangoes, right? They're like gold, especially the ones from Ratnagira. So, naturally, I was already drooling. She continues, come over tomorrow, we'll make Amras. And just like that, my weekend plans were sorted. The next morning, I woke up with this anticipation, this mango-induced joy, The sun was just peeking through the curtains, and I could practically smell the mangoes already. I rushed through my morning routine, practically skipped to the car, and drove to Nani's place. The moment I stepped into her house, I was hit with this wall of sweet, ripe mango fragrance. It was intoxicating. Nani was already in the kitchen, surrounded by mounds of golden Alfonso mangoes. They were plump, perfectly ripe, with that telltale blush of orange-yellow on their skin. Some were already peeled, their vibrant orange flesh glistening under the kitchen light. Oh, the sight itself was enough to make my mouth water. Come, Beta. Nani beamed, her hands already sticky with mango juice. We have work to do. First, the washing. Each mango was gently cradled and rinsed under cool water. Then came the peeling. Nani, with her expert hands, could peel a mango in seconds, the skin coming off in one smooth, graceful swirl. I, on the other hand, made a bit of a mess, Mango juice dripping down my elbows, bits of peel clinging to my fingers. Nani just chuckled, shaking her head and handing me a towel. Practice makes perfect, Beta, she said, her eyes twinkling. Now comes the fun part, the squeezing. Nani prefers the traditional method. No blenders, no food processors. Just hands. She showed me how to gently squeeze the peeled mangoes, releasing the pulp into a large steel bowl. The feeling of the soft, ripe mango yielding under my fingers, the cool, sweet juice oozing out, it was pure sensory bliss. And the aroma. Oh, the aroma that filled the kitchen as we squeezed those mangoes was heavenly. It was thick, sweet, with a hint of tanginess, a fragrance that just screamed summer. We chatted and laughed as we worked, our hands stained a cheerful orange. Nani told me stories from her childhood, about mango harvests and family picnics under mango trees. It wasn't just about making Amras, it was about connecting, sharing, creating memories. Now, here's where things got a little interesting. See, Nani has this quirky little ritual. She adds a pinch of saffron strands to the Amras. Just a pinch, she'd say, her eyes gleaming mischievously, for that extra touch of magic. And you know what? It does make a difference. The saffron adds this subtle, almost floral note to the Amras, elevating it to a whole new level of deliciousness. Then came the tasting. Nani dipped a spoon into the golden nectar and offered it to me. I closed my eyes as I took the first bite. Oh, my God. It was an explosion of flavor. The sweetness of the mangoes, the hint of tanginess, the delicate floral note from the saffron, it was pure, unadulterated mango heaven. It was like sunshine in a bowl. But you know what the best part was? It wasn't just the taste. It was the experience. The laughter, the stories, the shared moments with Nani. That's what made the amriz truly special. We ate the amriz with puri, hot and fluffy, soaking up all that delicious mango goodness. We ate until we could barely move, our bellies full and our hearts happy. Later, as I was leaving, Nani packed a container full of amriz for me. For your family, Beta, she said, her smile warm and loving. Driving home, the container of amriz nestled safely on the passenger seat. I couldn't stop smiling. It wasn't just a container of amriz, you see? It was a container full of love, memories, and the sweet taste of summer. And now, every time I make amriz, I think of Nani, of her laughter, her stories, her pinch of magic. I try to replicate her method, the gentle squeezing, the saffron strands, but it never quite tastes the same. It's missing that special ingredient, you know? The ingredient of love and shared moments. So, yeah, that's my amriz story. It wasn't just about making amriz, it was about, well, everything else that went with it. The connection, the laughter, the love. It's funny how something as simple as making amriz can become such a cherished memory, right? It makes you realize that the best things in life aren't just about the end product, it's about the journey, the process, the people you share it with. Isn't that true? I mean, wouldn't you agree? It's the little things, the seemingly mundane moments, that truly make life rich and flavorful, just like a perfectly ripe Alfonso mango, ready to be transformed into the king of all mango treats, amriz. And that, my friend, is the story of my most memorable amriz experience. So, tell me, have you got any good amriz stories? I'd love to hear them. Maybe we can even make some together sometime. Wouldn't that be fun? Okay, so, grab a cuppa, settle in, because I have to tell you about this family vacation. It's a story, a saga, a comedy of errors, really, but with a heartwarming, gooey center. You know the kind? It all started with my dad, bless his heart. He gets these bursts of enthusiasm. One minute he's peacefully reading the newspaper, the next he's declared we're all going to Yellowstone National Park. Just like that. No warning. A family bonding experience, he proclaimed, brandishing a travel brochure like it was Excalibur. My mom, ever the pragmatist, raised an eyebrow and muttered something about budget and sanity, but Dad was already lost in a world of geysers and bison. The planning phase was, well, chaotic. 4 kids, 2 parents, 1 minivan. You can imagine. Packing lists a mile long, arguments over who got the window seat, my youngest sister convinced she needed to bring her entire collection of stuffed animals, the usual. My mom, bless her soul, orchestrated the whole thing like a seasoned conductor, somehow managing to fit everything, including the kitchen sink, almost literally, into that poor, overloaded minivan. The drive itself? Oh, honey, don't even get me started. 14 hours in a confined space with 4 sugar-fueled siblings. It was a symphony of whining, bickering, and the occasional burst of off-key singing. Are we there yet? Became the mantra of the trip, repeated every 10 minutes like clockwork. My dad, fueled by coffee and dreams of majestic landscapes, remained relentlessly optimistic. My mom, on the other hand, started developing a twitch in her left eye. I buried myself in books and pretended I was anywhere else. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we arrived. Yellowstone. And you know what? It was breathtaking. Absolutely, utterly breathtaking. The air was crisp and pine-scented, the sky a brilliant, cloudless blue. The sheer scale of the place was overwhelming, this vast, untouched wilderness stretching as far as the eye could see. Even the kids, exhausted and grumpy, were momentarily silenced. We set up camp, another adventure in itself, involving a tent that refused to cooperate and a swarm of mosquitoes that seemed particularly drawn to my dad. But once we were settled, the magic truly began. We saw Old Faithful erupt, this magnificent plume of water shooting into the air, a primal force of nature that left us all speechless. We hiked through forests teeming with wildlife, spotting deer grazing peacefully in meadows and elk bugling in the distance. One evening, we even saw a grizzly bear, a magnificent creature, from a safe distance, of course. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of fear and awe. It was thrilling. But the best part, the part one remember most fondly, wasn't the grand sights, though they were incredible. It was the small moments. The laughter echoing around the campfire as we roasted marshmallows, the stories shared under a blanket of stars, the quiet companionship of my siblings as we huddled together in the tent during a sudden thunderstorm. There were mishaps, of course. Like the time my brother accidentally set his marshmallow on fire and panicked, flinging it into the air, where it landed, with perfect aim, in my hair. Or the time my sister tripped over a tree root and fell face first into a mud puddle. We laughed, we cried, we bickered, we made up. It was real, it was messy, it was family. One day, we decided to go white water rafting. Now, I'm not the most adventurous person, you know? So I was a little apprehensive, to say the least. My dad, on the other hand, was practically bouncing off the walls with excitement. He'd convinced himself he was some kind of expert rafter, despite having zero experience. The guide gave us the safety briefing, and my dad, bless him, nodded along enthusiastically, as if he understood a single word. Guess what happened next? Yeah, you probably guessed it. We hit a rapid, the raft bucked, and my dad went flying overboard. He emerged sputtering and drenched, clinging to a stray oar, looking like a drowned rat. We were all terrified for a second, then we burst out laughing. Even my dad, once he'd caught his breath, couldn't help but chuckle. It became an instant family legend, the story of the time Dad took a swim in the Yellowstone River. The evenings were particularly special. We'd gather around the campfire, the flames crackling and dancing, casting flickering shadows on our faces. My dad would tell stories, embellished tales of his youth, mostly, but we'd listen patiently, captivated by his animated gestures and dramatic pauses. We'd roast marshmallows, the gooey sweetness sticking to our fingers and cheeks. And we'd talk, real talk, about school, about friends, about dreams and fears. Conversations that wouldn't have happened back home, amidst the distractions of everyday life. One night, looking up at the vast, star-studded sky, I had this overwhelming sense of peace. I felt connected, not just to my family, but to something bigger, something ancient and profound. It was a feeling I'd never experienced before, a sense of belonging, of being a small part of something magnificent. The trip wasn't perfect, not by a long shot. There were arguments, there were tears, there were moments I wanted to teleport myself back home. But looking back, it's those imperfections that make the memories so precious. It wasn't about the picture-perfect postcard moments. It was about the shared experiences, the laughter, the tears, the sheer chaos of being a family. It was about seeing my parents not just as authority figures, but as flawed, funny, loving human beings. It was about connecting with my siblings, not as rivals, but as allies, partners in crime, fellow travelers on this crazy journey called life. Driving home, the minivan felt a little less cramped, the "are we there yet?" a little less frequent. We were tired, sunburned, and slightly mosquito-bitten, but we were also filled with a sense of shared adventure, a bond forged in the crucible of campfire smoke and sibling squabbles. That Yellowstone trip, with all its chaos and imperfections, remains one of my most cherished memories. It taught me the true meaning of family, the importance of connection, and the power of shared experiences. It reminded me that sometimes, the most memorable journeys are the ones that take you a little off course, the ones that challenge you, surprise you, and ultimately, bring you closer to the people you love. So yeah, that's my story. A little messy, a little chaotic, but completely, utterly, and wonderfully ours. You know what I mean? Learning a new language, especially something as widespread as English, can feel like climbing a mountain, right? But you know what? The best time to start was yesterday. The next best time is now. Think about it. Every single word you learn, every conversation you try, it's a step forward. Don't worry about perfection, just focus on progress, and you'll be surprised how quickly you gain confidence. It's all about the journey, and you've already begun. And speaking of progress, I have a fun idea for you. Have you ever tried doing role plays of different scenarios? Imagine yourself ordering coffee in a bustling cafe, or asking for directions in a new city. You can even practice while cooking dinner or taking a walk. It might feel silly at first, but it's a fantastic way to get comfortable with everyday phrases and boost your fluency without even realizing you're studying. Replying to unexpected questions can be a bit nerve-wracking, can't it? I know that feeling. It's like your mind goes blank just when you need it the most. You understand what's being said, but forming a quick response feels like a hurdle. It's completely normal, and trust me, it happens to everyone learning a new language. But guess what? Every time you manage to answer, even if it's a simple yes or no, it's a victory. You will not believe what happened next. I was chatting with a friend the other day about their language learning experiences, and it got me thinking. It's fascinating how everyone has their own unique story and inspiration. And you know what? I'd love to hear yours. What motivated you to start learning English? Share your story in the comments. I can't wait to read them. Okay, so, pull up a chair, grab a biscuit, or a slice of cake if you're feeling decadent. I won't judge. And let me tell you about the day I decided to make a scrapbook for my family. It wasn't just any scrapbook, mind you. This was going to be an epic saga, a visual testament to our shared history, well, you get the picture. It was going to be big. It all started, I think, with a pang of, what was it? Nostalgia? Maybe a little melancholy. I was looking through some old photos on my phone, you know, the kind that pop up as memories, and make you cringe at your old hairstyle, and I felt this wave of longing, I guess. For a time when things were simpler, when memories weren't just digital ghosts trapped in the cloud. I remembered the scrapbooks my grandma used to make. Thick, clunky things filled with faded photographs, handwritten captions, ticket stubs, dried flowers, all the little bits and pieces of a life lived. The smell of those old pages, that slightly musty, papery scent, it's practically its own category of nostalgia, isn't it? And then it hit me. I needed to do this. I needed to create something tangible, something I could hold in my hands, something my kids could look at long after I was gone, and hopefully not cringe too much at my questionable fashion choices. So, the next day, bright and early, I embarked on my mission. First stop, the craft store. Now, I'm not usually a craft store person. It can be a bit overwhelming. All that glitter and glue and colorful paper, it's a sensory overload. But I put on my brave face and plunged in. I grabbed a sturdy scrapbook, a deep green one that felt substantial. And then came the fun part, picking out the paper. Oh, the paper. There were florals and stripes and polka dots and patterns I couldn't even name. I spent, I kid you not, at least an hour just stroking different textures and debating the merits of paisley versus gingham. I ended up with a pile as high as my head, a chaotic mix of everything that caught my eye. I figured, why not? It's our family, we're a bit chaotic too. Back home, I spread everything out on the dining room table: photos, paper, scissors, glue sticks, stickers, decorative tape, the works. It looked like a rainbow had exploded in my dining room. My cat, Luna, was instantly fascinated. She kept batting at the dangling ribbons and trying to chew on the glue sticks. I had to banish her to the living room after she tried to make a nest in the pile of photos. The first page was the hardest. I wanted it to be perfect, to set the tone for the whole scrapbook. I started with a picture of my husband and me from our wedding day, a classic, right? But then I hesitated. Was it too traditional? Should I start with a picture of our kids? Or maybe a funny family portrait where everyone's making silly faces? I stared at the blank page, feeling a little paralyzed by the possibilities. You know that feeling, right? When you have so many ideas that you end up doing nothing at all? Finally, I just picked a photo, a candid shot of us laughing at something, probably one of the kids doing something ridiculous. I glued it down, added a simple caption, and it felt good. Like a tiny victory. From there, the pages started to fill up. Baby pictures, school photos, vacation snapshots, holiday gatherings, all the milestones, big and small. I even included some of those cringe-worthy phone pictures, the ones with bad lighting and awkward angles, because they were real, they were us. It wasn't all smooth sailing, of course. There were glue stick mishaps. Let's just say I now have a permanent bond with my favorite pair of scissors. There were moments of frustration when I couldn't find the perfect piece of paper or the right sticker to express what I wanted to say. And there were definitely a few tears shed over photos that brought back bittersweet memories. But there were also moments of pure joy. Like when I found a forgotten ticket stub from our first family trip to the zoo, and I could almost smell the popcorn and hear the excited squeals of my kids. Or when I stumbled upon a drawing my daughter made for me when she was 5, and I remembered how proud she was of her stick figure family. It was more than just assembling photos and decorations. It was like reliving each moment, each memory, all over again. I found myself laughing out loud, remembering silly jokes and funny stories. I found myself getting choked up, remembering tender moments and heartfelt conversations. It took me days, maybe even weeks, to finish the scrapbook. But it wasn't a chore, it was a labor of love. And when I finally closed the cover on the finished product, I felt this overwhelming sense of satisfaction. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't fancy, but it was ours. I presented it to my family one evening after dinner. I was nervous, I'll admit. What if they didn't like it? What if they thought it was cheesy? But their reaction, it was everything I could have hoped for. My kids pored over the pages, pointing out pictures of themselves as babies, giggling at old family jokes, asking questions about memories they'd forgotten. My husband sat beside me, his arm around my shoulder, a quiet smile on his face. And as I watched them, I realized that the scrapbook wasn't just a collection of memories, it was a connection. A tangible link to our shared past, present, and future. It's funny, isn't it? In a world of digital everything, something as simple as a scrapbook can hold so much meaning. It's a reminder that the most important things in life aren't the ones we store in the cloud, but the ones we hold close to our hearts. So, yeah, that's the story of the day I made a scrapbook for my family. It was messy, it was emotional, it was us. And that's exactly what made it perfect. Now, who wants another slice of cake? And tell me, have you ever made a scrapbook? I'd love to hear your stories. Okay, so grab a cuppa, get comfy, because this story is a bit of a saga. It's about the time I attempted, and I use that word very deliberately, to make my grandmother's famous pasticcio. Now, this wasn't just any pasta bake, oh no. This was a culinary masterpiece, a symphony of flavors, well, you get the picture. It was the dish, the one everyone requested at every family gathering. And Nana, bless her soul, made it look effortless. You see, Nana was a magician in the kitchen. She could whip up a feast with what seemed like thin air. A pinch of this, a dash of that, and bam. Pure magic. Me? Not so much. I could burn water. Seriously. So, the idea of even attempting her pasticcio felt audacious. Borderline sacrilegious, even. But there I was, freshly moved into my own apartment, overcome with a sudden wave of nostalgia, a desperate craving for that warm, comforting, cheesy goodness. I called Nana, phone clutched tight in my hand, heart pounding like a drum solo. Nana, I said, my voice a little shaky, I want to make your pasticcio. Silence. A long, drawn-out silence that felt like an eternity. Then, a little chuckle. Oh, honey, she said, her voice laced with that familiar warmth, that's a big undertaking. Understatement of the century, Nana. Understatement of the century. She agreed to walk me through it, bless her patient heart. So, there I was, armed with a pen, a notepad, and a whole lot of apprehension, ready to transcribe what felt like the culinary equivalent of the Dead Sea Scrolls. The first hurdle? The bechamel. Now, Nana never measured anything. It was all, a bit of this, and a handful of that. Try writing that down. How much flour, Nana? I'd ask, frantically scribbling. Just enough, she'd reply, with a twinkle in her eye. Just enough? What does that even mean? I'm pretty sure I used half a bag of flour in my first attempt. It resembled wallpaper paste. Thick, gloppy, utterly inedible wallpaper paste. Then came the meat sauce. Brown the meat, she said. Easy peasy, right? Wrong. I managed to achieve a sort of gray-brown, vaguely meat-like substance. The onions, bless their hearts, decided to stage a protest and remained stubbornly crunchy. The garlic? Well, let's just say I learned the hard way that burning garlic is a culinary crime punishable by a week of lingering kitchen odors. Don't even get me started on the pasta. Overcooked. Undercooked. Somewhere in between, but definitely not al dente. It was a pasta identity crisis. And the layering? Oh, the layering. It was supposed to be this beautiful, harmonious arrangement of pasta, meat sauce, and bechamel, all culminating in a golden, crispy top. Mine looked like a culinary landslide. A cheesy, meaty, pasta avalanche. By this point, I was covered in flour, sauce splattered across my apron like abstract art, and close to tears. This wasn't pasticcio, it was a disaster. I called Nana, defeated. It's not working, Nana, I mumbled, my voice thick with frustration. And you know what she did? She laughed. Not a mean laugh, but a warm, comforting, I've been there kind of laugh. Honey, she said, cooking takes practice. It's not about getting it perfect the first time. It's about the journey. The journey. Right. My journey currently involved a sink full of dirty dishes and a questionable-looking casserole dish. But Nana, ever the optimist, insisted I bring my culinary catastrophe over for a post-mortem. So, armed with my pasta-geddon, I trudged over to her house. And that's where the real learning began. Sitting at her kitchen table, the aroma of her perfectly cooked pasticcio filling the air, she gently deconstructed my attempt. See here, she'd say, pointing to the gluey bechamel, you added too much flour. Feel how the sauce should be, smooth, velvety. She showed me how to brown the meat properly, how to sauté the onions until they were soft and sweet, how to layer the ingredients with a gentle hand. It wasn't just about the recipe, it was about the technique, the feel, the intuition. We spent hours in her kitchen that day, talking, laughing, and, yes, eating. My disastrous pasticcio might not have been edible, but her perfectly crafted one was heavenly. And you know what? It tasted even better knowing the love and patience that went into teaching me. Over the next few months, I kept practicing. I called Nana countless times, peppering her with questions. How much is a pinch, Nana? What does until golden brown actually look like? Slowly, painstakingly, I started to get the hang of it. The bechamel transformed from wallpaper paste to a smooth, creamy sauce. The meat sauce developed depth and flavor. The pasta, bless its carby heart, finally achieved al dente status. And then, one day, it happened. I made a pasticcio. A real, honest-to-goodness, almost as good as Nana's pasticcio. It wasn't perfect, not quite, but it was close. And the taste? Well, it tasted like home. It tasted like love. It tasted like victory. I called Nana, practically bursting with pride. I did it, Nana. I exclaimed. I actually made it. She chuckled, that same warm, comforting chuckle. I knew you could, honey, she said. I knew you could. That pasticcio, the one I slaved over, the one that almost drove me to tears, wasn't just a dish, it was a symbol. A symbol of perseverance, of learning, of connecting with my heritage. It was a reminder that sometimes, the most rewarding things in life are the ones that challenge us, the ones that push us out of our comfort zones, the ones that cover us in flour and sauce and leave us with a sink full of dishes. So, yeah, that's the story of how I learned to cook Nana's pasticcio. It was a messy, chaotic, and ultimately, incredibly rewarding journey. And you know what? I wouldn't trade it for the world. Now, who wants another cup of tea? And maybe a slice of, you guessed it, pasticcio. Just kidding, unless? Winking face. Hey everyone. Learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, right? But remember, progress is progress, no matter how small. Even a single new word or a slightly smoother sentence is a step forward. These small wins build up, and before you know it, you're holding a conversation and feeling that amazing sense of accomplishment. So, keep going, you've got this. And you know what? I've got a fun little practice idea for you. Try describing old photographs aloud. You can do this while you're cooking dinner or even on a walk. It's such a simple way to practice vocabulary and sentence structure, and it's actually quite enjoyable, reminiscing about those memories. You might even surprise yourself with how much you can say. Feeling nervous before speaking in public is totally normal. I remember once I was giving a presentation in English and my heart was racing. It's like your mind goes blank, even when you've prepared. Believe me, I get it. It's a shared experience for so many of us, and it's okay to feel those butterflies. It actually means you care. Now, I was thinking about this the other day, and it made me curious. I remember having a much easier time talking about my hobbies in English when I first started. Which topic do you find easiest to talk about in English? Share in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, so, grab a cuppa, settle in, because this story is something else. It's about my first volunteer cleanup, and let me tell you, it completely changed my perspective. Like, completely. See, I've always been, well, I wouldn't say ignorant about environmental issues, but definitely more of a passively concerned citizen. You know? I'd dutifully toss my recyclables in the bin, occasionally feel a pang of guilt seeing a plastic bag tumble down the street, but that was about it. My activism peaked at retweeting a sad picture of a turtle entangled in fishing nets. Then, one Saturday morning, I think it was early spring, still that crisp bite in the air but the sun promising warmth, I was scrolling through Facebook, procrastinating on, well, everything, when I saw a post from a local group. Beach cleanup. This Saturday. All welcome. Something about the cheerful font, the picture of smiling people with overflowing trash bags, it just spoke to me. I don't know why. Maybe I was bored. Maybe I subconsciously craved a dose of doing something good? Anyway, on a whim, I signed up. Now, I pictured myself, you know, gracefully picking up a few stray plastic bottles, feeling all virtuous, maybe getting a nice Instagram photo out of it. Oh, the naivety. The sheer, blissful naivety. I arrived at the beach bright and early, armed with reusable gloves, pat on the back for me, a recycled tote bag, double pat, and absolutely zero idea what I was getting into. The meeting point was buzzing with people, families, older folks, groups of friends, even some dogs wagging their tails excitedly. It was heartwarming, actually. The air thrummed with this energy, this shared purpose. I immediately felt a little less like an imposter and a little more like I belonged. The organizer, a woman with a voice that could command a small army, and a sun hat that could probably shelter a family of 4, gave us a quick briefing. Safety guidelines, areas to focus on, what to do with sharp objects. Apparently, people discard anything on a beach. She handed out heavy-duty trash bags and thick gloves, way more robust than my flimsy reusable ones. I discreetly stuffed mine back in my tote. Rookie mistake number 1. And then, we were off. The moment I stepped onto the sand, the romantic vision I'd concocted in my head shattered. It wasn't just a few stray bottles. It was everywhere. Plastic bottles, food wrappers, cigarette butts, broken toys, tangled fishing line, bits of styrofoam. It was like the ocean had coughed up decades of human carelessness. The smell, oh my goodness, the smell. A pungent mix of salt, seaweed, and something vaguely rotten. My initial reaction was overwhelmed. Like, where do I even begin? There was just so much. I stood there for a moment, feeling utterly useless, the cheerful enthusiasm I'd arrived with slowly deflating like a punctured balloon. But then, I saw a little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, diligently picking up cigarette butts one by one, her brow furrowed in concentration. And next to her, her dad, patiently untangling a mass of fishing line from a clump of seaweed. And something shifted. This wasn't about Instagram photos or virtuous feelings. This was about, well, doing the work. The necessary work. So, I took a deep breath, pulled on my gloves, the sturdy ones this time, and started picking up trash. Piece by piece. Bottle by bottle. Cigarette butt by cigarette butt. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't pretty. It was often disgusting. I mean, you wouldn't believe some of the things I found. Let's just say diapers were involved. And I'll spare you the details. But you know what? As I worked, something strange happened. I started noticing things. The intricate patterns of the seashells. The way the sunlight danced on the waves. The cries of the gulls overhead. I even started talking to the other volunteers. A retired teacher who told me stories about the beach in her day. A group of college students who were surprisingly knowledgeable about marine pollution. A shy teenager who, I discovered, was a budding marine biologist. And we worked. We worked for hours. Our backs ached, our hands were grimy, and the smell, well, the smell was still there. But there was also this camaraderie. This sense of shared purpose. We were a little army of unlikely heroes, united in our mission to reclaim this small patch of beach from the clutches of human negligence. Guess what happened next? As we were wrapping up, just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, I saw something. A small sandpiper, flitting along the shoreline, pecking at the newly cleaned sand. And in that moment, I felt this surge of emotion. It wasn't just about the clean beach. It was about that little bird. It was about the tiny crabs scuttling across the wet sand. It was about the future of this place, and the future of our planet. It sounds cheesy, I know. But it was real. It was like I'd finally woken up. I'd seen the problem, not just in abstract terms, but in its raw, visceral reality. And I'd seen the power of collective action, the power of ordinary people coming together to make a difference. That first cleanup, it wasn't just about picking up trash. It was about picking up a sense of responsibility. It was about understanding that even small actions can have a big impact. It was about connecting with my community, with nature, and with myself in a way I never had before. And you know what else? It was the start of something. I've been volunteering regularly ever since. I've even started advocating for local environmental policies. It's a journey, and I'm still learning, still making mistakes. But that first cleanup, that was the spark. The moment I realized that being passively concerned wasn't enough. That sometimes you just have to roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, and do the work. Even if it involves diapers. Okay, especially if it involves diapers, because someone has to. So, yeah, that's the story of my first volunteer cleanup. It's a story about trash, and community, and seabirds, and the surprising power of a slightly smelly beach. It's a story about realizing that even the smallest act of caring can make a world of difference. You know what I mean? Okay, so grab a cup of something warm, settle in, because this story is a trip. It's about my first music festival. And, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly the Instagram-worthy, flower crown-wearing, glitter bomb extravaganza I'd built up in my head. See, I'd always imagined music festivals as these utopian bubbles of pure joy. You know, where everyone's vibing on the same wavelength, bathed in golden sunlight, singing along to their favorite bands. I was so naive. Bless my cotton socks. This particular festival was a 3-day camping affair out in the middle of, well, nowhere. The lineup was incredible, a mix of indie, folk, and electronic music, basically, catnip for my music-loving soul. I'd meticulously planned my outfits, packed enough snacks to feed a small army, and even practiced my effortlessly cool festival hair in the mirror. I was ready. The drive there was an experience. My friend Lisa and I were crammed into her tiny hatchback, our backpacks overflowing into the footwells, singing off-key along to a playlist that probably hasn't seen the light of day since 2012. We were so hyped, buzzing with that pre-festival anticipation, you know? Like Christmas morning, but with more questionable hygiene. Then we arrived. Dust everywhere. A thick, choking cloud of it hung in the air, stirred up by thousands of feet and cars churning up the parched earth. My carefully curated festival hair? Instant dust bunny. The smell? Let's just say porta potties and stale beer don't exactly create a symphony of delightful scents. It was overwhelming. A far cry from the whimsical wonderland I'd envisioned. Setting up the tent was a comedy of errors. Neither of us had any actual camping experience. We wrestled with poles, tangled ourselves in guy ropes, and generally looked like a couple of inflatable tube men flailing in a hurricane. Eventually, after much sweating and cursing, sorry, Mom, we managed to erect something resembling a shelter. It wasn't pretty, but it was upright. Small victories, right? The first day was a blur. Sensory overload. So many people, so much noise, so much everything. I remember snippets, the pulsating bass of a DJ set that vibrated through my chest, the unexpected joy of discovering a new band, the sheer, unadulterated energy of the crowd. But mostly, it was just a whirlwind of impressions. We tried to stick to our meticulously planned schedule. See band A at this stage, grab food from that vendor, catch band B over there. But it was chaos. Navigating the crowds was like swimming against a human tide. We lost each other multiple times, relying on frantic texts and the occasional glimpse of a familiar floral headband bobbing above the sea of heads. Food? Forget gourmet food trucks. It was lukewarm pizza and overpriced noodles, consumed standing up, precariously balancing plates on overflowing bins. Glamorous, it was not. The nights were interesting. Remember that perfectly pitched tent? Turns out, it wasn't quite as waterproof as advertised. A sudden downpour in the middle of the night left us huddled in damp sleeping bags, listening to the rhythmic drip 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 of rainwater leaking through the canvas. Sleep? What sleep? There was a constant symphony of snoring, drunken laughter, and the distant thump 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 of late-night DJ sets. By day 2, I was starting to unravel. My carefully planned outfits were crumpled and stained. My hair resembled a bird's nest. I'd run out of dry socks. And the dust, oh God, the dust. It was everywhere. In my hair, my eyes, my teeth. I felt like I'd inhaled half the desert. There was a moment, standing in a muddy field, watching a band I didn't even know, feeling utterly exhausted and overwhelmed, that I thought, what am I doing here? I missed my bed, my shower, the comforting predictability of my own four walls. I wanted to go home. But then, something shifted. The band launched into a song I knew. The crowd erupted. And I found myself, surrounded by sweaty, dusty strangers, singing along at the top of my lungs, feeling this connection. A shared joy. A sense of belonging. It was messy, chaotic, and far from perfect, but it was real. And that's when it clicked. The magic of a music festival isn't about the perfect Instagram photo or the flawless experience. It's about the shared experience, the collective energy, the raw, unfiltered emotion. It's about embracing the chaos, the dirt, the discomfort, and finding beauty in the unexpected. The rest of the festival was better. I let go of my expectations. I embraced the dirt. I danced in the rain. I sang off key with abandon. I made friends with a group of girls who shared their sunscreen and glitter. I even managed to navigate the porta potties without gagging, most of the time. Leaving the festival was bittersweet. I was exhausted, grimy, and desperately in need of a shower. But I was also exhilarated. I'd survived. I'd learned. I'd experienced something truly unique. So, yeah, my first music festival wasn't the idyllic dream I'd imagined. It was messy, chaotic, and at times, downright unpleasant. But you know what? I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was an experience. A real, raw, unforgettable experience. And that, my friend, is what it's all about. You know what I mean. It's about the journey, not the destination. Even if that destination involves porta potties and a generous coating of dust. So, would I do it again? Absolutely. But maybe next time, I'll invest in a decent tent. And a respirator. Just, in case. Well, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for spending this time with me and staying connected throughout the video. I really appreciate you being here. Before we go, I was just thinking about tomorrow morning and it made me wonder, what's something you're looking forward to tomorrow morning? It is always so lovely to hear what everyone is thinking about, and sharing your plans in the comments is such a wonderful way to practice your English and connect with each other. It helps us all feel a little bit closer, So share away. See you tomorrow, and remember to take good care of yourselves and keep practicing. Have a wonderful night.